Before we begin this video, I just want to say that I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I know that a lot of people aren't going to agree with me, but this video is strictly my opinion on what I've seen watching the Philadelphia Eagles. I strongly encourage discourse and discussion in the comments, but please be respectful. I respect everyone's opinion, even if I strongly disagree, so I would appreciate everyone doing the same in the comments. With that being said, enjoy the video. I've tried to believe in Nick Sirianni, I really have. You're probably saying, Chris, he's taken the Eagles to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them. How is he a bad coach? Let me explain. Sirianni is one of the most overrated, if not the most overrated head coach in the NFL. I'm beyond grateful that we have been to 2 Super Bowls and one in 2024, but how much impact has he really made on those runs? We have seen Sirianni coach the Eagles for 5 seasons consisting of 5 playoff berths, 2 Super Bowl trips, and 1 Super Bowl championship. At first glance, this is amazing. How could anyone hate on their head coach when these are the kinds of season he produces? Let's take a look back at the 2021 season. This was Jalen Hurts' first year as an NFL starter, as well as Sirianni's first year as an NFL head coach. It was not the best year for Hurts as he only threw for 3,100 yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and a passer rating of 87.2. He ran for a career-high 784 yards and was a real dual-threat QB. The Eagles as a whole were not a good team in 2021. They were coming off a 4-win year in 2020 and had a first-year starting QB and a first-year head coach. On paper, it wasn't looking good. They got off to an excellent start after beating the Falcons in Week 1, 32-6, with Jalen Hurts throwing for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. They will lose 6 of their next 8 games, putting any hopes of making the playoffs behind them. Nick Sirianni was brought to this team to develop Hurts and be an offensive genius. He called plays for these first 6 games, and he did a terrible job at that. It was looking like he was going to be a one-and-done coach. Nothing showed us that he was capable of being a coach at the NFL level, until our offensive coordinator Shane Steichen saved his career. After a miserable loss to the Chargers, Steichen took over as the play caller. Sirianni himself couldn't trust himself to run the offense anymore, so he had to give up play calling to his offensive coordinator. Steichen started calling plays and immediately brought fire to this Eagles offense. They blew out the Broncos in Denver, putting up 30 points, then immediately dropped 40 on the Saints to get back to 5-6. After a brutal loss to the Giants accompanied by Jalen Reagor drops, the Eagles wouldn't lose a game the rest of the season until they had already clinched a playoff berth. Shane Steichen single-handedly turned this team around and made them a playoff team. They were also the best-ranked rushing offense in the NFL, mostly due to the reliance on the run game and RPOs utilized by Steichen. Sirianni didn't do any of this. He wanted a pass-heavy offense with little RPO usage with a quarterback like Hurts who thrives in the RPO game. Sirianni would have burnt this 2021 season to the ground if it weren't for him giving up play-calling duties. Obviously, the Eagles got demolished by the Bucs in the wild card that year, but things were looking up for this team. They weren't supposed to be in the playoffs, but Steichen and his play calling maximized the potential of this roster. Going into 2022, there was no question who was running this Eagles offense. It was Shane Steichen. Sirianni put himself in the CEO role as a head coach. Odd for a head coach this young and regarded as an offensive specialist, but that didn't matter as long as he put this team in the best position to win. The 2022 Eagles were a team that I will never forget. The run game was elite again, and the passing game was a top 10 unit in the NFL. Steichen turned Hurts into an All-Pro and MVP candidate, and the Eagles' offense looked unstoppable. We all know that the season ended with a heartbreaking Super Bowl loss, but not due to an offensive struggle. Each of the 3 playoff games for the Birds consisted of at least 31 points, and Hurts outplayed Patrick Mahomes in Super Bowl 57, being let down by his Jonathan Gannon-led defense. Things were looking great heading into 2023. The only question was, who would be the Eagles' next play caller? The Eagles would promote their quarterbacks coach Brian Johnson to be their offensive coordinator in 2023, a move that many thought could work out because of his close relationship with Jalen Hurts and the way he helped develop Hurts in 2022. He was also a close friend of Nick Sirianni. Keep that thought in mind as the video goes on. The Eagles started 10-1 in 2023, but all Eagles fans knew that this was unsustainable. The offense was terrible, predictable, and it was clear that Brian Johnson could not call plays, or at least he couldn't call plays under the Sirianni regime. He was a great QB coach, but with Sirianni always in his ear, he couldn't implement his own offense. He's getting an OC interview for Denver this offseason, and I hope he gets it because if he does and thrives in that role, it completely exposes Sirianni. Anyway, fans were calling for him to be fired all year. Sirianni insisted that this offense would find its identity and that Johnson has done a great job of calling plays. This was absurd to hear. We saw an offense that looked unstoppable in 2022 look inept in 2023. The only difference was the offensive coordinator. All of the playmakers were the same on offense, and the offensive line remained intact. Hurts had a career high in passing yards, but he also had a career high in interceptions with 15. The offense was top 10 in the running game, but only 17th in passing. This was a huge drop-off for a team that was ranked 1st and 8th in those areas respectively in 2022 with the same cast. After that 10-1 start, the Eagles lost 5 of their last 6 games, putting together some of the worst play calls that I've ever seen. It was an embarrassing product they were putting out every week. The defense couldn't even save them because they were horrible as well. The only difference is that defense didn't have the big names like the offense had. Sirianni removed Sean Desai as the defensive coordinator towards the end of the 2023 season in favor of Matt Patricia, a move that didn't really do anything. Why he did this and not make a change at OC was beyond me, but Sirianni insisted Johnson was doing a good job and the offense would find its identity. The Eagles limped into the playoffs, and it went about as well as every Eagles fan was predicting. They got crushed by the Bucs in the wild card by a score of 32-9, an embarrassing and unacceptable end to a waste of a season. Nick Sirianni was the main reason for this season ending the way that it did. He hired 2 inexperienced coordinators and allowed it to go on all season without making any changes, hurting the Eagles in the long run. Every Eagles fan knew that it wouldn't end well, but Sirianni was so selfish and went to bat for his buddy Brian Johnson every week of the season. Even though he went to bat for Johnson every single week, he always let him take the blame and never took any blame upon himself. I started getting skeptical of Sirianni after the way he handled this season. If he wasn't going to call plays, if he wasn't going to hire good coordinators, if there was drama all season long, what was he good for? I didn't want him fired because he just brought this team to a Super Bowl, but he needed to get things together because he absolutely wasted a team that should have made it back to the Super Bowl. 2024 came around and the Eagles had new coordinators on both the offensive and defensive sides. Vic Fangio was brought in to coach the defense, and Kellen Moore was brought in as the new offensive coordinator. Moore was brought over from the Chargers as a result of Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie bringing him in. This was not a Nick Sirianni decision. Sirianni was responsible for the failure that was Brian Johnson, so the front office took over these decisions. 2024 got off to a rough start. Philly started the season 2-2 before the bye week, and this had fans livid. The offense was looking more and more like it did back in 2023. Nick Sirianni was playing a larger role in the offense during the first 4 weeks of the season, which was exactly why they were struggling. After the bye week, the Eagles took off. They won 10 straight games and the offense looked really good. It wasn't the same offense as 2022, but it was still towards the top of the league. The Eagles finished as the second best rushing attack in the NFL, so their dominant run game returned, led by first-year Eagles Saquon Barkley, having a historic 2,000-yard season. The offensive line in front of Barkley was incredible, and they were having a historic season too. The pass game was not where it needed to be in 2024. Jalen Hurts didn't even hit 3,000 passing yards, and the passing attack ranked 30th in the NFL. This was in part because of the historic rushing offense, but a 30th ranked passing offense is not acceptable. Hurts limited his turnovers, only throwing 5 interceptions and losing 5 fumbles across the 2024 season. Fans were confident going into the playoffs. As the number 2 seed, the Eagles were going to have to win 4 straight games if they wanted to win the Super Bowl. In their first game against the Packers, the Birds won 22-10 in a defensive battle. Barkley ran for 119 yards, but Jalen only threw for 131 yards. His passer rating was great at 111.4, but we were expecting a little more production in the playoffs. In the divisional round against the Rams, Barkley went off for over 205 rushing yards, and yet again, Hurts threw for a measly 128 yards. Because of the Eagles' conservative approach at times in this game, they almost blew it against the Rams if it wasn't for a great stop by the defense at the end of the game. I understand that the snow played a big factor in the offense's ability to get a lot going, but if they continued this conservative play, they were going to be in trouble. In the NFC Championship against the Commanders, it was a completely different story. Hurts played one of his best games of the season, going 20 for 28, 246 passing yards, and 4 total touchdowns, all with Barkley rushing for over 100 yards yet again. The Eagles dropped 55 points on their division rival this day. In Hurts' post-game press conference, he made a statement that is so crucial to the point of this video. He said, "They let me out of my straitjacket a little bit today." What does this mean? It means that Hurts has been wanting to play like this all season, but he was being held back by the game plan. I believe that the Commanders game was when Kellen Moore officially took full control of this offense. It looked completely different from what it did all season, and that's because I think Sirianni had too much influence on the offense all season long. This is just speculation, but you can really see a big difference in the offense from that game and the offense from earlier in the season in terms of the play calls and the way Kellen Moore was utilizing his stars. The Eagles were going back to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 59 marked the second Super Bowl appearance in 3 years for Philly, as they lost Super Bowl 57 to the Chiefs, as we mentioned earlier. They once again would face Kansas City, and this team, especially Hurts, wanted revenge. Experts across the media were predicting the Chiefs to win, some even predicting blowouts, but Eagles fans were more confident than ever that they would get the job done. Super Bowl 59 ended up being one of the most fun games I've ever watched as an Eagles fan. The offense played similarly to how it did against Washington, and the game plan was just beautiful. Obviously, the defense was destroying Patrick Mahomes, but the offense kept tacking on to put the game out of reach. Jalen Hurts again outperformed Mahomes after going 17 for 22 with 293 total yards and a passer rating of 119.7. The run game with Barkley wasn't there, so Hurts had to win with his arm, and he did just that. Kellen Moore's game plan was outstanding, utilizing routes all over the field and getting all of his receivers involved. Hurts would win his first Super Bowl MVP, and the Eagles were Super Bowl champions once again. Nick Sirianni originally earned my respect back. He brought this team to another Super Bowl and got the job done this time. Or did he? Remember what I said earlier, Sirianni relied so much on his coordinators to win games. He even begged after the game for Kellen Moore to run it back next season because he knew he needed someone like Moore to keep this success going. Nonetheless, we won the Super Bowl, so nobody cared about what was to come next. We were on top of the world. On February 19, 2025, just 10 days after the Super Bowl, the Eagles made one of the worst decisions in franchise history. Kevin Patullo was promoted to offensive coordinator. Obviously, I'm being a little dramatic, but right off the bat, this move sparked controversy. Fans hated this move and knew that it was going to come back to bite us. They were saying that this is Brian Johnson Part 2 and that hiring another coordinator who has never called plays before was a recipe for disaster. Not to mention, Patullo was the pass game coordinator for the Eagles for the last few seasons, where the passing game was not that good. Hurts even questioned the decision right after it happened. The reason I didn't like the decision was because of the way the promotion happened. After Kellen Moore left, Sirianni didn't hold a single interview for the position. He just promoted his best buddy to control the highest paid offense in football. This was just another selfish move by Sirianni, and one that would quickly come back to bite this team. After week 1 of the 2025 season, we already saw how predictable the offense was. They barely scraped off a win against a poor Dallas defense, and fans were calling for his firing already. After a week 2 win against the Chiefs, I knew that it was going to be a long season. Patullo drew up one of the worst game plans ever. He wasn't utilizing the stars the way they needed to be utilized. I could talk about Patullo's incompetence all day, but we just witnessed it this season, and I don't think anyone really wants to live through that again. He may have had 2 games all year where their play calling was good. It was good against the Giants in the middle of the season and good against the Raiders later in the year. His 2 good games came against teams that were fighting for the number 1 pick in the draft. After the 21-0 collapse against the Cowboys in Week 12, that was my final straw against Patullo and his calling plays. I thought there was no chance that he kept his job, but Nick Sirianni, in his infinite wisdom, doubled down and said Patullo has done a great job so far and did a great job in that game where the Eagles' offense failed to score in the final 3 quarters and blew a 3-score lead. How the hell can you look at that offense and say Patullo has done a great job? After that, I started questioning Sirianni again. How could he let this go on as a head coach? The team was following the same exact script as 2023, and that season ended in disaster. He kept going to bat for his buddy, and nothing ever improved. Week after week, the Eagles would put an embarrassing offensive product out on the field. Everyone on the offense was struggling. Hurts, Barkley, A.J. Brown, the offensive line. All of these players just don't become terrible overnight. This is a testament to poor coaching and preparation in the game plans. A.J. Brown was constantly sparking controversy, and the media was running narratives against Jalen Hurts all season. It seemed like Sirianni and Patullo were getting the benefit of the doubt instead of the stars who make the plays and have proven their worth time and time again in the past. After the Bills game in Week 17, Sirianni was seen shouting and boasting the victory, a victory in which they barely escaped with a 1-point win, not recording a single pass completion in the second half. It was now clear to me, Nick Sirianni is not qualified to be the head coach of this team. He is a glorified cheerleader on the sidelines whose only responsibilities have been throwing challenge flags, calling timeouts, and deciding to go for it on 4th down. These are things a lot of coaches are capable of doing in the NFL, by the way. Whenever Sirianni would step in with this offense, they struggled, and he probably doesn't even know any of the players' names on the defense. What does he do? People always bring up that he created a culture that the Eagles go by, and that is one of the reasons they have been so strong over the last few years, and I'm going to say that's BS. Jalen Hurts brought this winning culture to Philly, not Sirianni, but you can disagree with me in the comments on that one if you would like. And if he is so good with the locker room, why is there always conflict and stories coming out about turmoil with his players? This is because he doesn't actually have the locker room like the people think he does. Fans convinced themselves that the frat boy duo of Sirianni and Patullo were saving their good plays for the playoffs. I laughed every time I saw this because I knew better than to believe in these two. This was the exact same situation as 2023, except we were blessed with Vic Fangio and a good defense this year. Heading into the playoffs, we were tasked with facing the 49ers. Mind you, the 49ers were throwing out practice squad players on defense because of how banged up they were, and they were one of the lower ranked defenses in the league. Even with this, I knew the Eagles weren't going to do much on offense. Patullo has proven time and time again that he can't compete against even the worst of defenses, the Cowboys, Bears, and Commanders being a few examples. And what do you know, the Eagles couldn't even score 20 points in a loss to the 49ers, with Patullo drawing up one of the worst last plays I've ever seen. He ran 4 verts with 4th and long and the game on the line. The clip of them drawing up the final play is picture perfect to paint the 2025 season. Patullo is calling one of the worst plays ever, Hurts cannot believe what he's hearing, and Sirianni, the mouth breather, is standing there with his mouth wide open, not saying a single word and shaking his head, allowing the play to be called. There is not much more to be said about this. After wasting another Super Bowl caliber team, Sirianni deserved to be fired along with Patullo. I tried so hard to defend him, but after seeing another collapse fall in his hands, I couldn't deal with him anymore. Fans always bring up that he brought this team to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them. No, he didn't. The Eagles won the Super Bowl despite him, and they needed great coordinators on both sides of the ball to give them a chance. They always bring up his record, but again, they win despite him. As a play caller, he has a record of 2-5, and when he has the coordinators that he picked out, meaning Brian Johnson and Kevin Patullo, they are 22-14 including playoffs. Half of those games being played with an elite defense and the highest paid offense in the league. When you look at it like this, you can really see that Sirianni is holding this team back, and he's being overrated severely. The only reason he is being held in high regard is because of the Eagles winning, but that is because of the front office, coordinators, and players who actually contribute to the success of this team. Patullo was obviously fired after the season. Sirianni removed him from his position, but didn't rule out the possibility of him coming back in another capacity. This made zero sense because Patullo should never spend another day in Eagles gear again. The expectation was that the Eagles were going to hire an experienced offensive mind, one who would have full autonomy of the offense. Again, what would Sirianni be doing if this is the case? As the days went on, things were looking rough in the search for an offensive coordinator. Nobody wanted to come and coach for the Eagles. Stories came out that this was because nobody wanted to coach Jalen Hurts, but in reality, nobody wants to coach under Nick Sirianni. We lost out on Mike McDaniel, we lost out on Brian Dable, we lost out on Declan Doyle, we lost out on so many qualified coordinators because of Sirianni and what he brings to the table. At the time of writing the script for this video, the Eagles have hired Green Bay Packers QB coach Sean Mannion to be the next offensive coordinator. I like Mannion and I think he's going to be a really good coach at the NFL level, from what I've heard by doing a little research on him. He played under Sean McVay, Kevin Stefanski, Kevin O'Connell, and Clint Kubiak during his career, and coached with Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. He is a bright offensive mind who can develop quarterbacks, as he made Malik Willis look great at the end of the season last year in Jordan Love's absence. The issue I have is that Mannion has no experience calling plays. Just like Patullo and Johnson, he is brand new to this role. The reason I don't think this is good is that once Sirianni gets his hands on him, Mannion's going to start speaking Siriannese, and we will end up right where we left off with Johnson and Patullo. Sirianni won't be able to bully around an experienced play caller, but he can do that with someone like Mannion, who is trying to make it as a coach in this league. I envision Sirianni trying to take over this offense this season, and we're going to have another collapse to deal with. The point of this video isn't just to hate on the Eagles, it is to bring awareness of how Nick Sirianni is the most overrated head coach in the NFL. The problems that the Eagles face aren't because of Jalen Hurts. It isn't just because the offensive line wasn't elite this season. It isn't AJ Brown. It all falls in the hands of Nick Sirianni. He is a crybaby head coach who cares more about his job security than the success of this team. He is holding the Eagles back from what they are truly capable of. They had 2 first-round exits in seasons where their offense collapsed, where they were predicted to go deep into the playoffs, if not make it back to the Super Bowl. I just can't take it anymore. I'm so grateful for our Super Bowl victory in 2024, but let's be real, everybody. Sirianni didn't win that Super Bowl. The players, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, won that Super Bowl. If the Eagles want to position themselves in the best spot moving forward, they need to move on from Nick Sirianni. They moved on from Doug Peterson quickly after bringing a championship. They can do the same to him. It is not fair to Jalen Hurts, it is not fair to the players, and it is not fair to the fans to allow this coaching malpractice to continue. If we want serious change, Sirianni has to go. A question to ask yourself at the bare minimum is, if he is replaced, does his replacement make this team any worse? I don't think that's likely. Just because we won the Super Bowl with him being the head coach doesn't give him grace for the years to come. People keep saying he deserves to keep his job after winning a Super Bowl. No, the hell he doesn't. The NFL is a what have you done for me lately league. I would much rather have a competent head coach than one who has had historic collapses 2 of the last 3 seasons and got carried by talent and coordinators to win a Super Bowl. I also want to go out on a limb and give one of the biggest hot takes I've ever made. The Eagles will not make it back to the Super Bowl as long as Nick Sirianni remains the head coach. You guys can quote me on this, and if I'm wrong and we win the Super Bowl next year, I want all the hate directed towards me. I want to know what you guys think about Nick Sirianni. I understand that this is not a common opinion among Eagles fans, but this is how I feel after watching the Eagles this past season and before. I want to hear all opinions down in the comments. If you disagree with me, please enlighten me on why Nick Sirianni is not overrated and how you think he has directly contributed to the Eagles' success over the last few years. I'm going to try to answer as many comments as I can. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like. It really helps push the video out there, and subscribe so you can stay up to date with all things Philly sports. I should be making a video about the Sixers and their trade deadline aspirations, but we'll see how that goes. I promise that after this, I will get back to more positive stuff on our teams, but I just had to get this one out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.